Well, let's get some analysis now with Sami Al-Arian. He's the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Zaim University. Great to have you back with us, Sami. Let's start with the rising tensions between Israel, Lebanon and Iran. We know that a lot of analysts right now are most worried about this turning into an all-out war. But from Iran and Hezbollah's perspective, they feel like they have no option but to at some point retaliate to the assassinations that Israel has carried out recently. What's your view? In what form could this retaliation take place, and could that likely blow this out to a war?
The main reason for this tension, for this rise in tension, is the assassination that Israel carried out last week, not only in the Haniyeh against one of the most senior military commanders of Hezbollah, but also in Tehran, targeting Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas. So there has to be a response. They cannot be just to ignore these two serious breaches of the rules of engagement. It was Israel that decided that they wanted an all-out war. What's happening now is that Hezbollah and Tehran are trying to see what would be an appropriate response to restore deterrence, to restore the credibility of these two sides, and at the same time not to engage an all-out war, not to start an all-out war. So in my view, the decision to have an all-out war, a regional war, it's not going to be up to Hamas and Hezbollah, because they would have to respond, and that response has to be credible, has to be strong and forceful. It's what the response of Israel would be to their response. That would determine whether or not we're going to have a regional war.
In the meantime, we have this renewed push coming from the United States, Doha, and Egypt to resume ceasefire negotiations next week. Part of that, obviously, is to stop the bloodshed in Gaza, but also perhaps to avoid a situation where the tensions between Israel, Hezbollah and Iran escalate into a broader conflict. What's your view? I mean, is Israel likely to heed those calls to go back to the negotiating table, given the fact that Israel has so brazenly threatened those peace talks in the first place?
First of all, let's not kid ourselves and think that this is a Qatari, an Egyptian, and American proposal. This is a purely American proposal. The reason they added Egypt and Qatar is just a window dressing, to make it like as if the mediators are part of it. Egypt and Qatar are not major players, and Israel does not really respect them. They are just being used to be the conduits and the go-between with Hamas. Secondly, it's disingenuous on the part of the United States to start talking about ceasefire and start talking about a hostage deal or a captive deal when they have been for the past 10 months arming Israel. And not only that, but they brought an armada to the region and saying brazenly that they're going to defend Israel against any attack, knowing that it was Israel that actually violated the sovereignty of two nations and killing major players in this situation. So you're right that this is an attempt by the United States to stop the response, to stop the retaliation, the retaliatory attacks coming from Hezbollah and Iran at any moment, hoping that they can save Israel. But also, it's more important to note that it's Israel that has been basically obfuscating, Israel that has been blocking any kind of a deal. And that is not unknown. Everybody knows it's Netanyahu that has refused any kind of a deal, that he's been adding conditions month after month, week after week, and trying to make sure that whatever proposal that is on the table will be scuttled. Hamas and the resistance movements accepted these parameters that Biden put forth back in May, and it was Israel every time that they would reject it, or they would try to bring other conditions, knowing that this is not going to be acceptable. And it's Israel who said that they want something written from the United States in which they could resume the fight, they could resume the war. On one hand, they want to release the hostages, paying very little for them, and on the other hand, they want to resume the war. So there is no way that the resistance movements, that Hamas in particular, will agree to any kind of a deal before the commitment coming not only from the United States, but also from Israel, that this will be a permanent ceasefire. And secondly, there is no way something's going to happen before Hezbollah and Iran carry out their response.
And Sami, we know that the US will head to elections in November. Whoever wins, Joe Biden will remain president until January next year. Do you get the sense that the Israelis are perhaps just waiting to see the outcome of that? If Donald Trump does become president again, he will most undoubtedly be more friendly towards Israel, you would assume, wouldn't you?
Yeah, my sense is that Netanyahu wants Trump to be elected. And I think he's trying to raise attention and start or hoping that the United States would be engaged in a regional war by which the internal scene of the United States during the remaining months of Biden will see rising tensions in the streets, perhaps even demonstrations and a lot of social upheaval, because that is the only factor left in determining the future president, according to presidential historian Alan Lichtman, in which he has predicted the president in the past 10 elections. And according to him, the only thing left to determine whether or not the Democratic Party will retain the White House is, I think, the Gaza war, in terms of whether it's going to be protests around the nation in the near future, particularly before the elections. I think that's the game plan of Netanyahu and Trump.
Okay, Sami Al-Arian, we'll leave it there for now. It's great to get your analysis as always. Thank you.